Okay, let's unpack this. Up to 80% of what you are seeing right now, the walls around you, the device you're listening on, it isn't actually coming from your eyes.
Right.
It is being actively generated by internal neural processing. So your brain is essentially hallucinating a simplified version of reality, just to keep you alive.
Yeah, it's wild. And that biological filter is exactly why we struggle to study anything outside of our immediate physical environment.
Welcome to today's deep dive into Astral Cybernetics by محمد العمصي.
Our mission today is to explore his framework for mapping multidimensional realities.
Like out-of-body experiences.
Exactly, but doing it without abandoning strict scientific rigor or, falling into ungrounded mysticism.
Right, and Al-Amasi calls this biological and cultural filter the mental bubble, because we are culturally conditioned by materialism to basically ignore non-physical phenomena.
Right.
And our nervous systems, well, they evolved for survival, not for objective truth.
Yeah.
It's not just that we're walking through life wearing heavy-duty noise-canceling headphones, where you assume the world is quiet just because your specific device is filtering out the frequencies.
Yeah.
It's that our brains are actively playing a pre-recorded track of what we expect to hear.
Yeah.
It effectively overwrites anything that doesn't fit the physical survival model.
Exactly. Which forces us to ask, how do we study something our own biology is trying to hide from us?
Right. If our brains are so good at filtering reality out, why isn't traditional science enough to pop this bubble?
Well, because classical science is built on third-person physical measurement.
Mm-hmm.
It requires an external shared observer, but a multidimensional state is inherently first-person.
So you can't put someone's subjective out-of-body experience under a physical microscope.
No, because the microscope is only designed to measure the dense physical plane.
Wait, combining strict scientific rigor with completely subjective spiritual experiences sounds like a paradox. How does he avoid just cherry-picking data to fit his beliefs?
By introducing a multi-lens approach he calls the triadic methodology. It relies on three interconnected pillars. First, there's science, which acts as this harsh empirical constraint to prevent self-delusion.
Science keeps us grounded.
Right. Second is philosophy. And in this context, philosophy isn't just sitting around pondering. It is used to build a coherent ontology.
A logical framework.
Yes, a highly structured framework for categorizing what actually exists and how those things relate to one another.
And the third pillar is consciential practice, which is the actual field work, right?
Yeah.
Systematic self-experimentation.
Exactly. For example, he talks about inducing the vibrational state. Instead of just meditating, the practitioner uses specific techniques to consciously accelerate their own bioenergies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, creating a resonance that allows their non-physical awareness to temporarily detach from the physical body. What's fascinating here is how these three pillars dynamically compensate for each other's blind spots.
Because science keeps the metaphysical interpretations honest.
Right, while consciential practice generates the raw first-person data that objective science is physically incapable of reaching.
But let's get into the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
How do you actually process that data without losing your grip on reality?
That is where systems theory comes in, specifically through what Al-Amasi calls the cybernetic loop.
The cybernetic loop.
Yeah, it is a continuous feedback mechanism designed to ruthlessly test your own experiences.
Let's walk through a concrete example.
Yes.
Say you induce an out-of-body experience and you perceive something highly specific, like a red notebook sitting on top of a high shelf in another room.
Okay, so once you return to normal waking consciousness, you don't just blindly accept that vision as absolute truth.
Right.
First, you run it through the philosophy pillar. You analyze the experience logically. Does this align with known principles of multidimensional physics? Was the perception clear or dreamlike?
And then you immediately apply the science pillar to try and debunk yourself. So you're actively looking for physical explanations. Did I see that red notebook yesterday and just forget? Is this memory contamination? Could it have been a lucky guess? You actually go check the physical shelf to verify the data against your vision.
And that is the key. You act as your own harshest skeptic. If the experience survives that rigorous cross-examination, meaning you verified the notebook was there, and you ruled out all conventional sensory explanations...
Only then do you update your internal worldview.
Yes. The loop closes, and you begin your next experiment from a slightly higher, more informed level of understanding.
So what does this all mean? For you listening right now, this framework takes personal evolution out of the realm of blind faith and transforms it into a literal science experiment.
Mm-hmm.
You become both the observer and the instrument, constantly calibrating your own awareness.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Al-Amasi argues that consciousness itself is non-local. It isn't generated by the brain, it interfaces with it.
Through a holosoma, right?
Yeah, a complex system of multiple bodies of varying densities. Your physical body is just the densest vehicle. Your energetic and astral bodies operate at higher frequencies, and your physical brain essentially functions like a biological radio receiver, tuning into those signals.
The brain is just the hardware limiting the signal to the physical plane.
Which leaves you with a final question to ponder. If your consciousness is merely interfacing with your brain rather than being produced by it, what happens to your deeply guarded mental bubble when your physical sensory organs eventually cease to function entirely?
When the brain stops filtering the signal.
Precisely. What frequencies will you hear then?